I can see only Miss Fatima. Fatima, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Okay, I think you are the only participant today.
Okay. Uh, okay,
I think,
sir.
okay, no problem. So today we will discuss psychotic disorders called schizophrenia. The term psychotic indicates a severe deviation from normality. In the earlier classifications of psychological disorders by DSM-4 and earlier, we had the neuroses, psychoses, psychosomatic disorders, personality disorders. That was the classification. And this term psychosis also relates to psychotic disorders. Psychosis refers to a set of psychological disorders where the person basically loses contact with reality and he distorts reality. He quite often shows personality decompensation. When the person is normal, there is good integration between or among his mental processes, that is his thought, his emotions, and his behavior. That is what you mean by cognitive, affective, and cognitive coordination. That is what a normal person can coordinate and carry out his day-to-day activities in a normal way. Personality decompensation is a feature of psychotic disorders. So the person thinks one and he cannot recognize his own emotions and his behavior is altogether different from what he thought and how he felt. So that is how there is no proper coordination and integration among these three aspects of behavior. And schizophrenia is a term gradually modified from your material. You can see that it was Emil Kraepelin who used the concept of dementia precox. That was in 1890s. Yeah, 1896. German psychiatrist Emil Kraepelin. Earlier to that, John Hanslam, a British pharmacologist, observed a case of a boy who showed deviant behavior. Then Benedict Morel, Belgian psychiatrist, way back in 1860s, he reported another case. And the schizophrenics usually show good academic success. In fact, one of the cases that was described was a brilliant boy, brilliant student when he was in his 13s. He was, till then, he was doing very well in academics, and gradually he lost all his academic talents. He showed less interest. He was lethargic, and that is how usually people suffering from schizophrenia have good intelligence in the early stages, but only later on there is a gross decline in their memory, their abstract thinking, their planning, decision making. All these cognitive abilities gradually deteriorate. And apart from that, they even show lack of emotions. So it affects thought processes, emotionality, and behavior. And people suffering from schizophrenia usually show apathy. Apathy is not showing any emotionality. Sometimes they might show certain emotions, but they are absolutely irrelevant. Sometimes they might be laughing, even if there is a dead body at home when other family members are in deep sorrow mood. This person doesn't have that uh, presence of mind, or even that emotionality is absolutely irrelevant of the surroundings. That is how their thought, emotionality, and behavior are affected. This term, as I mentioned earlier, originally was dementia precox. Then schizophrenia was first coined by Swiss psychiatrist Eugen Bleuler. He described the etiology. Sorry, etymology. Etiology is different. Etymology is origin of the word. Etiology is the branch of pathology that studies the causes of a disease. Etymology, how this word finds its entry into abnormal behavior, abnormal psychology is schizo is a split, SCIZO, and phreny refers to mind. And you should not get confused with a split personality. It is a split of mind, but split personality is different. You must have heard of multiple personality disorder. There was a popular movie called Aparichitudu, where the person shows three different independent personality systems. But here, this split is within the mind. And this split is with respect to thought, emotions, and intellect from reality. So it should not be confusing with split personality. Schizophrenia is not split personality, but it has different deviations from normalcy. And the prevalence of schizophrenia worldwide, it is reported as 21 million. These worldwide statistics. And male, female, gender bifurcation or breakup, not bifurcation, gender breakup details approximately show that 12 million males and 9 million females. That way, males are more in number suffering from schizophrenia compared to female counterparts. In India, it is 1%, no, not even 1%, 0.7%. So that way, it is probably 1 out of 140 general population. You find only 0.7% of the victims suffering from schizophrenia. And the age, the onset could be sometimes a teenage, 13, 14, or 15 years. But usually around 40 to 49 years, predominantly people are affected by this disorder. When it comes to Indian cases, there is no gender predominance. Both men and women are found to be equally inflicted by this disorder. And diagnostic criteria, or you can say the clinical picture. What are the symptoms of schizophrenia? Means delusions. Delusions are actually false beliefs. I will elaborate again. Belief, it is maintained in spite of contradictory proof. There is no evidence for one's belief. It is a gross distortion of reality, and his belief is absolutely baseless. For example, a person believes that he is sent by God as a messenger, and his task is to set this abnormal world. So for him, he is absolutely right, but the world only is abnormal, and he is sent with a great mission to set this world right. That is absolutely a false belief, and it is irrational. It is against reality, and it is firmly maintained. Though the person suffers from poverty, he thinks that he still maintains that aristocratic family setup and all, is very rich, affluent and all. That way, it is against reality. It is a false belief. Then hallucinations. Hallucinations are false sensations. It is sensory experience in the absence of a relevant physical stimulus. For example, there is nobody, but this person thinks that God is talking to him. Suddenly, he orders silence. All people have to just shut down, shut their mouths down, and he would be talking to God. So as if there is some heavenly creature, and he is addressing God or the Almighty. And this is a visual hallucination. So it is perceiving a stimulus even in its absence. There is no proof. There is no, the absolute stimulus is absent there. So it could be visual hallucinations. It could be auditory hallucinations. Sometimes you would be hearing calls of God or somebody who is already, he thinks his dead mother or father or Jesus Christ or somebody is calling him, and he could clearly hear the preachings or the conversation made. Absolutely, for normal people, there is no person, there is no source of sound at all. But still, this person experiences that auditory sensation. So this is hallucination. And illusion is normal phenomenon. It is only for comparison purpose I am mentioning about illusion. Illusion is the normal experience, and it is only a distorted perception. For example, there is a small piece of rope, and this person mistakes it for a snake under semi-dark conditions. But there is some stimulus called piece of rope. The only thing is it is mistaken. That is illusion, and all normal people experience illusions. There are many famous illusions like moon illusion, Pockendorf illusion. These are all normal phenomena. Only stimulus is not perceived as it is perceived in a different way. But in hallucination, There is no stimulus at all, but still this person experiences such sensations. That is another criterion for diagnosing schizophrenia. And disorganized speech. The person frequently shows derailment of his conversation. He talks something and suddenly he shifts to something else. And there is no coherence. Sometimes he uses different words together which do not make any meaningful, comprehensive idea about or any message. That way, this is another criterion to judge schizophrenia. And grossly disorganized behavior. This is catatonic behavior where the person shows peculiar movements of hands, arms, or leg movements, or sometimes he maintains certain stiff postures of his body with a particular posture, and he might maintain that posture for some hours, sometimes even for days also, and it may prolong even for some weeks. Peculiar body posture and without moving. So body muscles become so rigid, and this person maintains that posture for a prolonged period also. That is disorganized, grossly disorganized behavior. And negative symptoms also can be seen. Here, there are two types of symptoms that have been highlighted by psychiatrists and psychologists: positive symptoms and negative symptoms. When schizophrenia is a psychological disorder, you might wonder how come positive symptoms, when the person is suffering from an abnormal condition or a psychological disorder, where is the question of positive symptoms? Here, positive symptoms mean that there are some behaviors apart from normal behavior. In addition to normal behavior, there are some aspects of behavior. These are exactly what positive symptoms mean. Hallucinations and delusions, they are not present in normal people, but these symptoms are present in schizophrenics, and these are additional behaviors that are not present in normal behavioral repertoire. So normal people do not show these responses. These hallucinations and delusions, they are additional aspects of behavior. That's why they are termed as positive symptoms. And the negative symptoms are actually symptoms that are missing or symptoms which are lacking from normal behavior. For example, the speech disorders, the speech problems like alogia, flat affect, evolution, apathy, asociality. These are actually not present. They should not be present in normal people. And these are lacking. The person who should have normal affect. Affect means here normal emotionality. This person should have normal speech, normal social behavior. That means he should be able to interact with other people, and he should have proper relevant emotions, and he should have motivation to do certain things in life. These are not present in a schizophrenic. So behaviors that are expected to be present in a normal person are not present in this person. So they are termed as negative emotions. And the symptoms in schizophrenia are divided into 3 domains. One is the, as I mentioned just now, positive symptoms, negative symptoms, and disorganized. Originally in the DSM-4, only positive symptoms and negative symptoms were discussed, but later on, this third domain called disorganized or bizarre behavior also has been added to describe schizophrenia. And in the positive symptoms, as I mentioned, the delusions, as I said, these are bizarre, irrational beliefs which are maintained against reality. There is no evidence or proof for his belief, but still he maintains. And 4 categories of delusions have been identified by psychiatrists. One is persecutory. The person suspects or believes that he might be killed. Somebody is planning to kill him, attack him. So that is baseless belief, and that is called persecutory delusion. Then a referential delusion. Whatever he finds around his environment, he thinks they are meant for him. For example, if he watches a signboard with an arrow mark, he thinks that this is meant for him only. God has created those arrow marks or the environment around him only to suit him. So that way, everything is directed to himself. It is about him only. Then delusions of grandiose. Sometimes they are also called grandeur. These grandiose delusions are beliefs that this person is very superior in intelligence, is knowledge, and he is too rich, wealthy. So that way, he rates himself as too superior to people around him. Grandiose feelings. That is what he thinks, I am sent by God. So that way, I should take care of this entire world, set things right. Then erotomanic delusions. These are delusions that a very beautiful person, very beautiful girl is loving, very popular cine heroine or any popular person is showing romantic feelings towards this person. That he believes that that person is in deep love with him. So that way, these are erotomanic. Then nihilistic. Nihilistic delusions are about one's own death. I may die anytime. Though there is no proper reason. He doesn't suffer from any organic disease or something like that, but still he has a belief. And catastrophe, major catastrophe is going to happen very shortly, and all the world will come to an end. That kind of delusions, which are baseless, or other type of delusions. Then somatic delusions. These are pertaining to one's own health and body. That way, there is another term called hypochondriasis, and this is still beyond that. So this is one set of delusions. Then hallucinations, as I mentioned earlier, there is no proper relevant stimulus, but still the person experiences those sensations. So these are sensations in spite of relevant physical stimulus or physical stimuli. And these are again auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations, olfactory hallucinations. Olfactory refer to the smells, peculiar smells. Tactile hallucinations. Tactile is touch, sense of touch. These are all sensory experiences, even in the absence of appropriate stimuli. And I was telling about the negative symptoms. Here, you have a set of A's: evolution, asociality, anhedonia, flat affect or blunt affect, alogia. These are all the negative symptoms. Evolution is that the person doesn't have any curiosity, no motivation, and he doesn't show any interest in any day-to-day activities. Evolution. Asociality is that the person is not interested in carrying out interpersonal relationships. Quite often, he doesn't show any interest. Even if he is looking at people, there is no life in his facial expression, and eyesight is just vague and wary, not focused at any to any person, and he doesn't show in conversing with people. That way, his interest in social relations is poor. Then anhedonia. Hedonia is pleasure. Anhedonia is he doesn't derive any pleasure in doing things. For example, there are two types of pleasures. One is consummatory and the other is anticipatory. Consummatory pleasure is when you are eating your favorite food or any food. It is an enjoyable experience. But this person doesn't show any sense of pleasure or happiness, whether he's watching any comedy scene or something of interest, doesn't produce any humor in this person. He is least moved, least on sense of humor. And not only that, even if when you are listening to your most likable or melodious music, sometimes you would be definitely enjoying it. But people who suffer from schizophrenia, there is no consummatory pleasure. They won't enjoy what they are doing. Anticipatory pleasure is something after you have reached a goal, you have done something, you have succeeded or accomplished something. Naturally, you are satisfied and you show a sense of accomplishment and happiness. But these people do not show that kind of pleasure. Then affect. Affect is blunt or flat. They don't show emotions. And sometimes we use the term apathy. See, there are three emotional states at least: apathy, sympathy, empathy. Apathy is showing no feelings, no sentiments, no emotions at all. Sympathy is at least you understand the other person's predicament. Sometimes you show a gesture of understanding the other person's difficulties, problems, and you just fact it. He says, my brother met with accident, or my grandfather is suffering from corona or any serious physical disease, something like that. You show some concern for the other person's feelings. That is sympathy. Empathy is still more emotional involvement. Watching the other person, you also show the same emotionality. This is sometimes termed as stepping into somebody's shoes. So, looking at a person in deep trouble, you also carry out a similar emotionality. That is how there are sometimes tears watching some tragedy scenes in the movie or the television serial, sometime like that. So you show emotions. That is what life is. But this person is least moved emotionally. Then disorganized symptoms pertaining to speech. His speech, he doesn't sometimes alogia. Alogia is, he shows very little conversation. He makes very little conversation. Just one or two words only, not elaborating. When the situation actually demands more elaborate narration, this person just very briefly, and he doesn't show interest even to speak to other people. So poor speech. Apart from that, he has difficulty in making speech by sticking to the images and the thoughts. He cannot link them. Sometimes he shows neologisms. He coins new words, very peculiar words. And sometimes he repeats words and statements. Sometimes he just shows clang or only rhyme. I missed out your message, please. What is that? Somebody? Okay. And not only speech is disorganized, his behavior also is disorganized. He shows bouts of this lesson is about schizophrenia, unit number 7. I announced it at the outset. This schizophrenia, psychotic disorders. Then disorganized behavior is his shows bouts of agitation, severely disturbed, and his clothing is very casual. Sometimes he lacks personal safety and personal hygiene. Then you might observe this person hoarding food, keeping food separately for himself, hoarding and storing, then collecting garbage. And his manners are very silly, behaves like a child. That is how his behavior is absolutely not up to his level of maturation. And that is how it is bizarre behavior. You must have watched, he walks very briskly on the road, suddenly comes to a halt and laughs for a while and makes some conversation, suddenly stops his conversation, and again he resumes his brisk walk. So this is absolutely meaningless for observers, but for him that is reality. And schizophrenics lose orientation. Orientation is lack of awareness about person, place, and time. So schizophrenia doesn't differentiate whether it's a day or night or midnight, whatever it is. That is with respect to time. Then lack of orientation with respect to place. He doesn't know where he is, whether he is in bedroom or in the middle of the road or in the railway station. He doesn't have any awareness of that. And a person. Sometimes a schizophrenic might just question, who are you? He might question his own parents. Why are you suggesting me? Who are you? As if he is talking to a strange or new person. So that is how schizophrenic has lack of orientation also. Personality decompensation, loss of contact with reality, and lack of orientation. These are all features of psychotic reactions. And the catatonic behavior is another type of schizophrenic behavior because it is bizarre behavior, because his muscular movements are very rigid, strange. Sometimes he might move his, as I mentioned earlier, hands, legs, fingers in a very peculiar form, strange. That's why it is bizarre behavior. Then on the cognitive front, cognition refers to attention, sensation, perception, thinking, memory, planning, problem solving, decision making, abstract thinking, all these reasoning, all these are cognitive functions. And schizophrenic loses his cognitive function gradually. Though for some time he must have been very good academically, but as the onset of this disorder gradually happens, this person loses his capacity to keep attention first on any object for sufficient time on any stimulus. And information processing, his memory also is severely affected. Sometimes even if you ask his name, he might put a blank face. So that is how his cognitive functions are severely affected. Then speed of processing, visual, and probably he finds it difficult to make new learning of verbal as well as psychomotor tasks. And his abstract thinking, planning and all will be severely affected. He cannot make any rational decisions, all irrational thoughts and irrational beliefs. And the course of schizophrenia is divided into 3 phases. One is prodromal, where initial signs show. Sometimes he might show peculiar ideas, report certain unique propositions like that. Then the second stage is active stage, where symptoms are apparently triggered by stress. So the person shows all those positive, sometimes negative symptoms. And the third domain of disorganized speech and behavior also. And the residual stage, this is the course here is a prognosis. It is called course, how it moves along. He returns to, again, prodromal stage after treatment probably, and his level of functioning gradually might slowly improve, but he retains certain negative symptoms that were present in the active stage also. And number of subtypes have been listed out or introduced by DSM-5, delusional disorder, brief psychotic disorder, schizophrenic form disorder, schizoaffective disorder, schizotypal or personality disorder, substance-induced or medication-induced psychotic disorder, psychotic disorder due to another medical condition. These are all the types of schizophrenia that have been listed out by DSM-5. The causes, etiology is the causes. Etiology is a branch of pathology which studies the causes of a disease or a disorder. The etiological factors behind schizophrenia are three types, three categories: biological, psychological, and socio-cultural. Biological causes are genetic influence, family studies, twin studies, and adoption studies. All these studies have emphasized the role of genes, genetic influence. And studies have revealed that schizophrenia is a polygenic trait. See, we know that there are two types of genes, dominant and recessive genes. Dominant gene alone can transmit a disorder from one generation to another generation. If it is present either in the father or in the mother, the offspring is likely to inherit that trait, whether it is a negative trait or a positive trait, whether it is a good quality or bad quality. Dominant gene can show its trait. But recessive trait has to be inherited by two genes. Recessive gene is weak only when both father and mother have that trait in them. These two recessive genes together produce that trait. A polygenic trait is a trait or a characteristic which is determined by genes, gene pairs from different genes. So genes from different gene pairs, intelligence, schizophrenia, these are such traits which are carried or actually influenced by many genes. So poly means many. That is actually a polygenic trait. Intelligence also, it is a very complex ability. So that also is found to be determined by number of genes on different pairs. So genetic influence has been emphasized by studies conducted on twins, fraternal twins, or dizygotic twins, monozygotic twins. They have revealed the presence of genes, the influence of genes. Then psychological factors, prenatal exposures and all, infections also biological factors. Then psychological factors are stress and trauma during critical periods of development. See, there is a term called critical period. This is a particular developmental stage where a positive development or a negative development is likely to happen. And if the environment is not congenial, that development is not going to take place. For example, critical period during the formative stage of the embryo, say after male-female unison, the sperm and the ovum combine to form zygote, and the zygote will develop into an embryo. And the first 2 months are very important. And the third month is the formative period where all the body parts of the baby would be formed. If for any reason, if any body part is not formed in that period of third month, before completion of the third month, that part is not going to part afterwards, not going to form afterwards. So this is where sometimes children with missing hands, missing legs, any limb, any body part, that is a critical period. Similarly, language development also has a critical period. If people are not exposed to any language, a particular language, before they cross the second year of life, language does not develop normally. So this is the reason why we learn our mother tongue, because right from infancy, we start listening to various sounds relating to language. Then they are recorded in the brain and we make attempts to reproduce those sounds. This is how we learn our language. So by the end of second year, we are able to pronounce at least 1 or 2 alphabets, or sometimes 3 alphabet words also. This is the reason why we learn our mother tongue faster. Other languages, foreign languages, where we start learning after crossing 5 years or 6 years of age, foreign languages are not properly mastered. So this is the reason why critical period for language development also is very important. That way, people who experience severe stress, particularly during adolescence, family pressure, pressures at academic, place of learning, school or college, they impose a lot of pressure. And these pressures and traumatic experience sometimes, they precipitate. There are 2 factors, predisposing and precipitating factors. If the person is vulnerable to stress, and if the person is exposed to such stressful, traumatic experiences, incidents, this predisposition, vulnerability materializes into that particular disorder. So, socio-cultural factors also, social pressure and family pressures and all, they induce a lot of pressure on this person, and excess of that pressure beyond his capacity to handle or absorb, the person manifests psychotic symptoms, schizophrenia. And the treatment procedures for schizophrenia or electroconvulsive therapy. It is, in common language, it is called shock therapy. Mild electric shock is applied by a very well-trained psychiatrist. Even clinical psychologists cannot give chemotherapy or ECT. Chemotherapy is prescribing drugs. Only a psychiatrist. Except psychiatrist, ECT or prescribing medicines, drugs and all cannot be done by other professionals. So a well-trained psychiatrist only can apply that shock for a very short time, probably a couple of milliseconds, and mild. So that's why it's a very sensitive practice. Apart from ECT, neuroleptics, antipsychotic medicines like chlorpromazine are found to be more successful. Antipsychotic medications like clozapine and risperidone also are recommended by psychiatrists. Apart from that, psychosocial treatment also. Family members. Most of our behavior is related to the people around us, family members, then peer group, relatives, then peer group, then colleagues, if the person is working for any organization. people can observe certain amount of pressure and stress, but when it is beyond his capacity, and people who are genetically predisposed, vulnerable to such stressors are likely to suffer. So to prevent any relapse, parents and other members in the family have to show a lot of concern for this person. That is where psychosocial aspect of therapy is very important. So this is briefly about schizophrenia as a psychotic disorder. Any doubt? There are only 4 people. Farheen, Anjum, Fatima, Nahveen, Tejas, and Vaishnav. Okay, tomorrow we will take up another topic, topic 8 in your material. So if there are no doubts, I will sign out. Tomorrow we will join. Okay? Okay then, good day. Bye.